Fear is one of the greatest forces that has stopped millions of people from stepping into their true potential. It whispers in your ear that you're not good enough, that you don't have the resources, that you don't have the talent, that you will embarrass yourself if you try. Fear is always present when you are about to do something that could change your life. The moment you take a step toward greatness, fear shows up like a giant standing in the middle of your path. But the reality is this: fear is not meant to destroy you. It is a test. It is there to see if you are strong enough to keep moving forward, even when your heart is racing, your hands are shaking, and your mind is filled with doubts. Retreat is easy because it feels safe, but greatness has never been found in safety. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not fearless. They are simply committed to standing tall in the face of fear. Think about it. Every invention, every breakthrough, every movement in history came from someone who looked fear in the eye and decided to keep going. They didn't retreat even though fear screamed louder than their confidence. When you refuse to retreat in the face of fear, you tell yourself that courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move in spite of it. Courage is the voice that says, yes, I'm scared, but I'm moving anyway. Yes, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going forward. Yes, failure is possible, but retreat is not an option. That's what separates the winners from the watcher. Winners refuse to let fear paralyze them. They use fear as fuel. They let the nerves sharpen their focus, heighten their awareness, and push them into action instead of running away. When you stand tall against fear, you begin to discover that fear is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. It looks intimidating, but the moment you walk into it, you realize it has no real power over you. Most of the time, what you were afraid of never even happens. And even when it does, you find out that you are far stronger than you thought. Retreating from fear keeps you small, but facing it expands your capacity. Every time you confront fear head on, you grow. You add another layer of strength to your character, another level of confidence to your spirit, another tool in your toolbox of resilience. You cannot build courage by running away. You can only build courage by standing still and refusing to retreat. Fear will disguise itself as logic. It will tell you that waiting for the perfect time is smart, that staying in your comfort zone is wise, that taking a step back is safer. But the truth is that the comfort zone is where dreams go to die. The perfect time will never come. Safety is an illusion. Retreating is not wisdom, it is surrender. You have to recognize the lies fear tells you and call them out for what they are. Because once you expose fear, you rob it of its power. Once you refuse to give in, fear becomes a stepping stone instead of a stumbling block. Fear can't stop someone who has already made up their mind. That retreat is not on the table. So the next time you feel fear, don't bow down to it. Don't negotiate with it. Don't let it push you backwards. Stand tall, plant your feet, and take one step forward. That single step is a declaration that fear may exist, but it doesn't control you. That step tells your mind and your heart that you're in charge, not your emotions. It tells the world that you were built for more than comfort. You were built for courage. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You'll begin to see fear not as a signal to stop, but as a signal that you are on the right path. Fear only shows up when something great is at stake. And if greatness is on the line, why would you ever retreat? Fear will try to make you feel small, but when you stand tall, you prove to yourself that you are bigger than your fears. You prove that you have what it takes to move forward, even when your knees are shaking. You prove that you are not ordinary, that you are not someone who bows down to pressure, that you are not someone who runs from challenge. You are someone who moves forward no matter what. Fear can shout, it can threaten, it can intimidate, but it cannot stop a determined spirit. And that's why you must always stand tall in the face of fear. Because the moment you refuse to retreat, you become unstoppable. Pain is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people run from it, hide from it, or do everything in their power to avoid it. But what they don't realize is that pain is not a punishment, it's preparation. Pain is the pathway to power, the tool that life uses to shape you, strengthen you, and strip away everything weak in you. Every champion, every leader, every person who has achieved something meaningful in this world has had to endure pain. The difference is, instead of retreating when it got uncomfortable, they embraced it, they endured it, and they used it as fuel. If you refuse to retreat from pain, it becomes your greatest ally. Pain teaches lessons that pleasure never could. It breaks you down in order to build you back up stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Think about the gym. You cannot build muscle without resistance. If the weight is light and easy, it does nothing for your growth. It's only when you push against a heavy load, when your muscles burn and scream, that transformation happens. That burn is pain, but it's also the signal of growth. Life works the same way. The struggles, the setbacks, the heartbreaks, they are the resistance you push against to grow into the person you are meant to be. If you retreat from that resistance, you retreat from your own progress. But if you endure it, if you push through, the same pain that tried to break you will end up building. Pain also reveals who you truly are. When everything is easy, everyone looks strong. But when life gets hard, when pressure is applied, when it hurts to keep going, that's when the real you shows up. Do you retreat or do you rise? Pain is the test that separates pretenders from contender. It is the stage where true character is revealed. If you refuse to retreat, pain becomes the very thing that proves your strength. Every scar, every wound, every hardship becomes a testimony that you are still standing. Power isn't given, it's earned through the fire of pain. What makes pain so valuable is that it humbles you and sharpens you at the same time. Pain reminds you that you are human, that life isn't guaranteed to be smooth, but it also shows you that you are capable of enduring more than you thought. The person who avoids pain avoids growth, but the person who embraces it becomes unstoppable. Pain has a way of burning away arrogance, laziness, and excuses. It forces you to dig deep into reserves you didn't even know you had. It forces you to develop patience, endurance, and resilience. These qualities can't be bought. They can only be earned through struggle. And once you earn them, no one can take them away from you. The truth is, pain is temporary, but the power it gives you is permanent. The ache, the struggle, the sleepless nights, the tears, they will pass. But the strength, the wisdom, the discipline you gain from enduring them will stay with you forever. Most people make the mistake of quitting during pain because they think it will last forever, but it won't. Pain has an expiration date. And if you refuse to retreat, you will outlast it. You will rise on the other side, carrying a power that only those who endure can understand. Pain doesn't come to stay, it comes to pass. But while it is here, it comes to teach. Every story of greatness is soaked in pain. Athletes push through physical exhaustion, injuries, and years of training no one sees. Entrepreneurs endure sleepless nights, failed businesses, and endless rejection. Students grind through stress, doubt, and sacrifice to achieve their dream. Pain is the common denominator in all of their journeys. If you see someone standing in victory, know that they also walked through valleys of pain. What made them different was not talent alone, but their refusal to retreat when the pain came. They understood that pain is the toll you must pay to reach the destination of success. When you learn to embrace pain, something powerful happens. You stop fearing it. And when you stop fearing pain, you become dangerous. Fear of pain is what holds most people back. When you've been through enough struggle and you realize you survived, you stop seeing pain as the enemy. You start to see it as a signal that you are growing, stretching, and moving closer to your destiny. Pain becomes your compass. The areas that hurt the most are often the areas that hold your biggest breakthroughs. That's why those who refuse to retreat in the face of pain always reach levels others only dream about. So the next time pain knocks on your door, don't run, open it. Let it teach you, let it train you. Let it train you with someone. Let it push you beyond the limits you thought defined you. The pain you feel today is not there to destroy you. It is shaping the person you must become to handle the blessings, opportunities, and responsibilities of tomorrow. Nothing at the end of your story. It is the necessary chapter you must write before the victory. Excuses are easy to create because they protect us from responsibility. They give us a reason to stop, a justification to retreat, and a shield to hide behind when life gets tough. But excuses, no matter how convincing they sound, are powerless when compared to purpose. Purpose is the fire that burns inside you, the vision that wakes you up in the morning, the reason you fight when everything in you wants to quit. When your purpose is clear and strong, excuses cannot compete. They may whisper, they may tempt, they may try to hold you back, but purpose roars louder Purpose reminds you why you started in the first place, and that why becomes the anchor that refuses to let you drift away when storms come. The truth is, excuses will always show up. They will tell you that you're too tired, too busy, too unprepared, too young, or too old. They will convince you that tomorrow is better, that waiting makes more sense, that someone else has it easier. But when you live with purpose, you realize that no excuse is bigger than the calling on your life. Excuses are temporary barriers, but purpose is permanent fuel. Purpose doesn't allow you to stop because it reminds you that your life is bigger than your comfort, bigger than your convenience, bigger than your feelings. When you live with purpose, you know that quitting isn't just about you. It impacts everyone connected to your destiny. Think about the people who depend on you, the people watching you, the people who will be inspired or discouraged based on whether you keep going. Purpose forces you to realize that your journey isn't just for yourself. There are lives tied to your perseverance. And if you retreat, you don't just rob yourself, you rob them too. Excuses may give you temporary relief, but they also leave behind permanent regret. Purpose, on the other hand, may demand sacrifice, but it rewards you with fulfillment that excuses could never provide. When you anchor yourself to purpose, discipline comes easier. You stop relying on motivation because motivation fades, but purpose sustains. On the days when you don't feel like moving, purpose whispers, but do it anyway. On the days when fear tells you to stop, purpose reminds you, this is why you started. Excuses might make sense in the moment, but purpose gives you a long-term perspective. It shifts your focus from what feels good now to what will matter later. Excuses look at today. Purpose looks at eternity. Excuses care about comfort. Purpose cares about legacy. Your purpose is not a suggestion. It's a responsibility. You were created with gifts, talents, and opportunities for a reason. To retreat because of an excuse is to waste what was placed inside of you. Every time you choose purpose over excuses, you honor that gift. You honor the sacrifices of those who came before you. You honor the opportunities that others would give anything to have. Excuses may make life easier in the short term, but they shrink your capacity. Purpose stretches you, challenges you, and sometimes hurts you, but it always expands you. And expansion is necessary if you're ever going to step into the person you were meant to become. The most dangerous thing about excuses is that they sound reasonable. They make retreat seem logical. They tell you that stepping back is safer, that slowing down is smarter, that stopping altogether is justified. But the problem with excuses is they don't build you. They protect your comfort, but destroy your potential. They defend your limitations instead of stretching your possibilities. If you ever want to see what you're capable of, you must stop listening to excuses and start listening to purpose. Purpose never tells you to retreat. Purpose tells you to rise. Purpose tells you to endure. Purpose tells you that what's in front of you is worth the pain, the sweat, and the sacrifice to Mazah. When your purpose becomes bigger than your excuses, you begin to see setbacks differently. They don't make you quit. They make you sharper. They don't make you stop. They make you adapt. You stop seeing challenges as reasons to retreat and start seeing them as part of the process. Excuses see obstacles as dead ends. Purpose sees them as detours. Excuses make you weak. Purpose makes you resilient. Every time you choose purpose, you gain strength. Every time you choose excuses, you lose ground. Ask yourself, what is my why? Why do I do what I do? Why do I wake up every morning and push through? If your why is strong enough, nothing can stop you. Excuses lose their power when they come face to face with a reason that's bigger than them. The reason most people quit is not because they lack ability, but because their why isn't strong enough. A weak why would always surrender to excuses, but a strong why will refuse to retreat no matter the cost. So you must dig deep and find that purpose, that reason that burns so deeply within you that no excuse can extinguish it. Doubt is one of the most dangerous enemies of progress because it doesn't shout loudly. It whispers quietly day after day until you start to believe it. Doubt tells you that you don't have what it takes, that your dream is too big, that your effort won't matter, that failure is guaranteed. And once you start to believe doubt, retreat becomes easier and easier. But there is something stronger than doubt, something more reliable than feelings or emotions, and that is discipline. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline doesn't ask whether you're motivated. Discipline doesn't negotiate with doubt. Discipline simply shows up, does the work, and keeps moving forward. And that's why discipline will always defeat doubt. The truth is that feelings are temporary. Some days you wake up with energy, other days you don't. Some days you feel unstoppable. Other days you feel like quitting. If you build your life on feelings, you will live inconsistently, always retreating the moment doubt creeps in. But if you build your life on discipline, you create stability. Discipline is doing you said you would do long after the mood you set it in has disappeared. Doubt tells you to quit. Discipline tells you to keep going. Doubt feeds on hesitation, but discipline feeds on repetition. The more consistent you are, the less power doubt has over you. Discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Waking up early, staying focused, doing the hard work when you rather rest, it all feels like a burden. But with time, it becomes who you are. Discipline builds habits, and habits shape identity. Once you train yourself to act regardless of how you feel, doubt loses its grip. You no longer need to feel confident to take action. You act first and confidence follows. Retreat becomes impossible because discipline refuses to give you the option. You've trained yourself that forward is the only direction. Many people think successful individuals are always motivated, but that's not true. The most successful people are the most disciplined. They win not because they always feel like it, but because they refuse to let doubt dictate their action. They understand that discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. Doubt may try to break that bridge, but discipline keeps it steady. Every day you show up when you don't feel like it, you lay another brick in that bridge. Eventually, your discipline builds a path strong enough to carry you across any storm of doubt. Doubt thrives when you wait for the perfect time, but discipline knows there is no perfect time. Discipline acts now. Doubt overthinks, analyzes, and procrastinates, but discipline executes. Doubt makes excuses. Discipline makes progress. Doubt is rooted in fear, but discipline is rooted in commitment. That's why every time you choose discipline, you starve doubt. You prove to yourself that progress doesn't require certainty. It requires consistency. You don't need to know the whole plan. You just need to do the next step. Discipline takes care of the rest. Discipline also creates evidence. Doubt tries to convince you that you can't, but when you stay disciplined, your results become proof that you can. Every workout you complete, every task you finish, every promise you keep to yourself is a piece of evidence that doubt is lying. And when you start stacking evidence, you build confidence. Confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you create through discipline. The more evidence you have, the quieter doubt becomes until eventually, it no longer controls your decisions. What most people don't realize is that discipline frees you. Doubt traps you in hesitation and fear, but discipline gives you clarity and strength. When you are disciplined, you don't waste energy wondering whether you should or shouldn't. You just do. That decisiveness frees your mind to focus on growth instead of second guessing. Retreat is born in hesitation, but discipline kills hesitation. Retreat is born in indecision, but discipline thrives in action. The more disciplined you are, the less likely you are to retreat when life gets difficult. Of course, discipline isn't easy. It demands sacrifice. It requires you to say no to comfort and yes to challenge. It requires you to silence the voice of doubt and obey the voice of commitment. But what's the alternative? If you live by doubt, you will always retreat when things get hard. You will live half a life, always wondering what could have been if only you had stayed consistent. But if you live by discipline, you build a life of strength, resilience, and achievement. You may not feel like it every day, but when you look back, you will be proud because you refuse to retreat. Every great achievement in history was built on discipline. Athletes train when they don't feel like it. Artists create even when inspiration is absent. Every step you take forward, no matter how small, weakens the power of the obstacle standing in front of you, the enemy of your progress. Whether it is fear, doubt, failure, or discouragement, gains its strength only when you stand still or move backward. Retreat gives your obstacles more control because every time you stop, the enemy grows taller in your mind. But when you take a step forward, you shrink his power. You prove to yourself that progress is possible, that forward motion is stronger than fear, and that resistance can be broken down piece by piece. Forward movement is not about giant leaps. It is about consistent steps, small victories, daily choices that add up and slowly crush the weight of what once intimidated you. Too many people underestimate the power of a single step. They think it has to be big, flashy, or perfect in order to matter. But progress doesn't demand perfection. It demands persistence. The enemy wants you to believe that if you can't do everything at once, you might as well do nothing. But the truth is, every single step forward counts. One workout makes you stronger than 0 workouts. One chapter read brings you closer to wisdom than none. One attempt puts you ahead of everyone who never tried. The enemy wants you paralyzed, but each step proves you are still alive, still fighting, still moving. Each step forward is evidence that retreat is not an option. Retreat is not an option. The beauty of forward motion is that it compounds. One step may feel small today, but string enough steps together, and suddenly you are miles away from where you started. What was once impossible becomes your new normal. Not because you leapt there overnight, but because you refuse to retreat. Each step, each effort, each moment of discipline chipped away at the mountain in front of you. Eventually, that mountain is no longer intimidating because you've already climbed halfway up without even realizing it. The enemy weakens because it can no longer convince you that the mountain is unmovable. Your actions prove otherwise. Forward motion also builds momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in life because once you're moving, it becomes harder to stop. The enemy wants you stuck, motionless, overthinking, doubting yourself. But the moment you take that first step, momentum begins to shift in your favor. It might be slow at first, but with each step, you start to gain speed. With speed comes confidence, and with confidence comes more action. Before you know it, the enemy is scrambling, unable to stop the force you built simply by refusing to stand still. That's why the most dangerous person is not the one who moves the fastest, but the one who never stops moving forward. Every step forward is also a declaration of identity. It says, I'm not someone who quits. I'm not someone who retreats. I'm someone who advances. The enemy tries to convince you that you're weak or unworthy and capable, but every step you take contradicts that lie. It reminds you of your strength. It reminds you of your strength. It reminds you of your resilience. It reminds you that even when you don't feel like it, you are still capable of progress. And the more you walk in that truth, the harder it becomes for the enemy to shake your confidence. Even in the face of setbacks, forward motion still weakens your enemy. Sometimes you may stumble. Sometimes you may fall. Sometimes your progress may feel painfully slow. But as long as you get back up and take another step, you are still advancing. The enemy cannot defeat someone who refuses to stay down. A step after a fall is even more powerful because it proves that failure didn't stop you. The enemy loses control the moment you realize that setbacks are not fine. They're just part of the process. The act of continuing is what makes you dangerous. Forward motion also inspires others. When people see you taking steps despite challenges, it reminds them that they can too. Your courage to move forward gives them permission to do the same. And when you inspire others to take steps, the enemy weakens even more because now it's not just you advancing, everyone around you. Forward motion creates a ripple effect, and that ripple grows into waves of change. One person's refusal to retreat can ignite an entire community to rise up and move forward together. Every step forward is not just about reaching your destination. It's about who you become in the process. With each step, you are proving to yourself that you can endure, that you can grow, that you can transform. The enemy wants you to believe you are stuck, but forward motion reveals the truth. You are evolving every day. The person who takes consistent steps forward is not the same person they were yesterday. They are stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the challenges ahead. The enemy weakens because you are no longer who you used to be. You are advancing, becoming more powerful with every move. Victory is never handed to anyone. It is earned by those who persist when others give up. Persistence is the quiet, relentless force that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Extraordinary is not about who runs the fastest at the start or who shines the brightest for a moment. It's about who refuses to stop, who keeps showing up, who keeps pushing even when progress feels invisible. Victory doesn't belong to the talented who quit halfway. It doesn't belong to the strong who stop when it gets uncomfortable. Victory belongs to the persistent, to the ones who decide that no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets, they will not retreat. Persistence is powerful because it outlasts every obstacle. Challenges will come, setbacks will arrive, and failures will sting, but persistence absorbs them all and keeps moving forward. Most people retreat at the first sign of struggle, convinced that difficulty is proof they should stop. But those who persist understand that difficulty is not a dead end, it's part of the journey. Every struggle is a test, and persistence is the answer key. Each time you keep moving in the face of resistance, you prove that nothing can break your will. That's why persistence always finds victory, because it refuses to let obstacles have the final word. The truth is, talent and intelligence can only take you so far. There are countless people with potential who never make it because they lack persistence. They were good at starting but poor at finishing. On the other hand, there are people with less talent, less experience, less support who win big simply because they refused to quit. They showed up day after day, they endured the grind, they stayed the course when others walked away. Persistence levels the playing field. It doesn't matter where you start or what disadvantages you face. If you refuse to retreat, persistence will carry you to victory. Persistence is not glamorous. It doesn't always feel exciting. In fact, persistence often feels repetitive and exhausting. Well, it looks like waking up early when no one notices, practicing when no one claps, working when no result show up yet. It's unglamorous consistency, but it's the kind of consistency that compounds into greatness. Persistence builds habits, and habits build success. One day of effort might not change your life, but 1,000 days of persistence will. The ones who quit never get to see the results of compounded effort, but the persistent reap rewards that others only dream of. Every victory story you admire has persistence at its core. The athlete who wins championships trained for years in obscurity. The business leader who built an empire endured failures, losses, and countless rejections before success finally came. The artist who inspires millions produced work that was ignored, criticized, or dismissed before recognition ever arrived. What made them different was not luck, but persistence. They refused to retreat when the world said no. They refused to retreat when results were delayed. They refused to retreat when the weight of struggle pressed down on them. Victory found them because persistence kept them in the game long enough for success to appear. Persistence also reshapes your mindset. The more you persist, the more you train yourself to believe that every setback is temporary. When you persist, failure stops looking permanent. It becomes feedback. Challenges stop feeling like punishments. They become preparation. Your mind shifts from asking, "Oh, can I do this?" to declaring, "I will do this." Doubt loses power because persistence keeps providing evidence that you can endure. With each step forward, your faith grows stronger, and eventually you realize that the only way you could ever lose is if you retreat. That realization makes you unstoppable. Another reason victory belongs to the persistent is that persistence wears down resistance. Every obstacle has a breaking point. No wall can withstand constant pressure forever. The problem is that most people quit before the wall cracks. But those who persist keep applying pressure day after day until the wall finally gives way. The enemy cannot withstand someone who refuses to stop. But persistence is like water dripping on stone. It may not look powerful at first, but over time, it shapes and reshapes what once looked immovable. That's how victories are won. Not in one big strike, but in countless persistent blows that eventually break the barrier. Persistence is also contagious. When people see you keep moving in the face of adversity, they are inspired to keep moving too. Your refusal to retreat becomes a source of strength for others who are tempted to quit. Your persistence creates a ripple effect, turning personal victory into collective victories. That is why persistent people often become leaders. Not because they're the most talented, but because they model endurance that others want to follow.